Hi gang, welcome to the RCR podcast where our mission is to cut through the noise when it comes to tree and ecology surveys in the UK. In this episode, we're going to be looking at why the planning system has become so confrontational. So strap yourselves in and let's go. Hi gang, welcome back to the RCR podcast where our mission is to cut through the noise and bring some clarity, hopefully in plain English, to tree and ecology surveys used to support planning applications right here in the UK. If you're listening from abroad or you're listening for the first time, welcome. You won't believe the dramas that we have in this country when it comes to planning. So, in this episode, why has planning become so adversarial? Well, planning used to be collaborative. Lately, it feels more like a boxing match, and more like a boxing match every day. Developers versus ecologists versus tree officers. So why has the system become so adversarial? I'll be digging into that in this episode, but first this. Hi folks, it's time for You Couldn't Plan It, the feature where me and my team have scoured the internet for stupid, silly and downright infuriating planning related facts. Let's go. So folks, in this one we have got a article here from the Sun. This has actually been sitting on my desktop for a little while. This was published back in June. And this one's close to home, really. So for those of you that don't know, I've got an interest in aviation. We use drones within the business, and I've also done a lot of flying of manned aircraft as well, some of which have been... Oh, I've got to get Kean to put a clip in, haven't I? If you're watching this on YouTube, here's a picture of me rolling a Cold War jet over the Cairngorm Mountains. Right, so he's going to have to go and find that now. Sorry. Right, okay. So this one is about a UK airport that has shut for good after 95 years to make way for thousands of homes. And this is something that's been going on across the UK for about 10 years now, is that old airfields, old Second World War airfields are being developed for both business and housing. And quite often that comes to the detriment of general aviation. So this privately run airport shut on June the 6th this year, 2025, after a developer served notice on the operator of the site. And this is Tollerton Airfield in Nottingham. And the plans are basically to build 1,600 homes and a school at the site. It is home to Nottingham City Airport and a number of other businesses, and the site also provides a landing zone for the air ambulance. So the developer has served a notice on the operator to vacate the site, but said that it would continue to provide a landing zone for the air ambulance during the initial phase of development. So yeah, I wonder where they're going to get shifted to now. This particular one, and the reason we've included it is because it's fairly controversial. There has been a year-long battle with campaigners to try and stop this happening, and the reason for this that is quite interesting is that they believe that more than 1,200 aircraft containing radioactive materials were burnt and buried at the RAF base over the years. And it was used after the Second World War to dismantle hundreds of Lancaster bombers and other aircraft that had elements of them, had a chemical in it. Was it radium? I can't remember, or radon. Let me scan the article here. Where is it? Yeah, radium-226, which sounds horrendous, but this was only used in very small quantities, and basically it made the glow-in-the-dark dials for the aircraft, so, fairly important when you're over foreign lands in the middle of the night, but there we go. Site owner Brian Wells, who was sent notice to vacate the area in March, previously said developers were determined to have everywhere shut down for when it came to planning. So yeah, there's an awful lot of anger around this. So it's one of those ones, isn't it, where it's pitted lots of people against one another. We do need the homes, and they've got to go somewhere, and I guess probably these sites are the best. Now, if we put a link in the description to the article, there's part of the article which says what would happen if the site is contaminated, and there is a picture of an aircraft there, which is something called a Jet Provost, which is a post-war jet fighter, and that's the one that I flew. So there we go. Right, back to the article. So, as I said in the intro, planning did used to be collaborative, and lately it feels more like a boxing match. Developers fighting against ecologists and tree officers all the time. So why has the system become so adversarial? Let's have a look. Well, historically, the planning system has always been about checks and balances. If we let people do whatever they wanted to do, then the countryside would be covered with, Teletubby houses and pink pots and all sorts of bizarre things. But the reality of this, as I have a quick drink, the reality of this, essentially, is that local planning authorities are massively, massively underfunded. And this leads to delays in the system. It leads to service level agreements being missed. It leads to mistrust. It leads to paperwork battles. And to expand on that a little bit, what I am finding, certainly in our consultancy, is that a lot of local authorities, because they don't have the money for, or they can't recruit these in-house positions, they're using external bodies to support them with their workload, with assessing planning applications. And where that falls down is that there's zero pragmatism. And if you're engaging somebody external to work on your behalf, you can bet your bottom dollar that they are going to dot all the I's and cross all the T's and take the strongest, firmest, most defensible line possible, because they've got to justify their existence, rightly or wrongly. And it can just lead to the most simplistic of schemes becoming absolutely ridiculous. So there we go. But it's not all the local authorities' fault, is it? Because developers are also pushing loopholes, particularly with biodiversity net gain at the moment. And look, I get it, I understand why it's been done, but the last 6 months to a year have seen a pushing of loopholes around self-build exemptions and manipulating the biodiversity metric and all that kind of stuff, which means that, ecologists and arboriculturalists are sort of boxed into a defensive corner, and they're forced to absolutely scrutinise everything at the end of the day. And what does this lead to? Well, it leads to a massive lack of trust. And it also leads to more paperwork for everybody. It leads to more paperwork. It leads to more legal agreements, and it leads to less quality ecology and arboriculture being carried out on the ground. In my opinion, the system doesn't need more red tape. It just needs more trust, and it needs more pragmatism. And pragmatism, common sense, is enshrined within planning law. Although I have recently had communication from a local planning authority saying that they can't find, they don't see why pragmatism should be applied to a particular application, which is for some decking for a community project around some static caravans that being used for office purposes. The applicant wants to put some decking around there, and as part of the application, they were going to achieve a biodiversity enhancement on site by creating some wooden planters, but they can't meet BNG on site. It's just not possible. The area is just far too small, and they're being forced to buy off-site credits. Try and buy 0.00001 off-site credits and see how you get on. Absolutely ridiculous, but there we go. So from my opinion, the system, it doesn't need more red tape, just needs more trust, more pragmatism. And, possible fixes. What can we do here? We could empower consultancies to do some of the work for the local authority. I know that's been talked about in the wider sector, but ultimately local planning authorities need to be better invested in. They need to be able to use some of the money that comes in from applications to better resource those planning authorities, and then we might actually see more applications going through on time. The regulator needs to hold bad actors accountable as well, from all sides, and we need to have a culture shift essentially from this sort of adversarial system that we've got at the moment to something a little bit more collaborative. And the issue is that you tend to get a different response every time you go in with a new application, even if those applications are very similar. So, until we fix trust in planning, we're just going to keep wasting time fighting each other instead of focusing on the environment. And, at the end of the day, what's your experience? Let me know. Collaboration, combat, what is your experience with the system at the moment? So as we come to the end of this one and we wrap it up, we've got one more feature, the feature that you all love, apparently. We've got planning permission panic line. You've got the questions, the planning system's a nightmare. We have got the answers. Welcome to the planning permission panic line. So in front of me here, I have got some questions in from listeners, always appreciated. So please do keep sending those in. You will know that this is a very difficult subject to talk about repeatedly week on, week out. So getting questions in from you guys really helps us, bring some life to this and get some really high quality commentary out there. So what have I got here? I have got Ravi. Is that how I pronounce that? I hope so. Apologies if that's wrong. Ravi in Croydon says, our trees are protected, but they're in the way. What can we do? Very little, actually, Ravi. But let me just unpick tree preservation orders a little bit for you. So tree preservation orders are applied by the local planning authority to trees that have sort of significant arboriculture, amenity, value, and also, generally speaking, those trees, they have to be seen from publicly accessible land. So it's quite rare to see a tree with a preservation order on in the middle of private property in the middle of nowhere, but it does happen from time to time. Anyway, just because the tree is protected doesn't mean to say it can't be removed for development, but there is a presumption against removing that tree for development. And the reason that I say the tree can't be removed for development, or there's a presumption against it, is because it's protected by a tree preservation order. So by its very nature, it's probably going to be quite a high quality tree, quite a significant tree, maybe even quite a rare tree. However, the local planning authority does not know the condition of trees with TPOs all the way across their area. They rely on tree safety surveys that get carried out from time to time on publicly accessible trees. Maybe some of their own tree stocks might be TPO'd, but when it comes to private trees on private land, what they really need to do is get an arboricultural report in front of them that will stress what the condition of that particular tree is. So it may be that you've got a tree that is in the way of development. Normally that would be a red flag, and you're not going to be able to do anything about that. However, if that tree has got significant defects or there's problems with it, then what you might be able to do is remove that tree to facilitate development, but you're going to have to plant fairly significant trees in its place or in a similar location. So you need a tree survey, really. You need a tree survey right at the very start to see what the condition of that tree is. If you get full planning consent, and that full planning consent shows the removal of trees that are protected by TPOs, then the planning permission overrides the TPO. That's not a way of circumventing the legislation. However, it's just worth pointing that one out. So Ravi, it depends on the condition of the tree. If for whatever reason it's got major defects, or it's not particularly healthy and has got a reduced, what we call useful life expectancy, then it may be that that tree could be removed to facilitate development. But it all starts with a tree survey. What I would say is, if you want to send in to us some imagery of that site and the situations, we can have a look at it and tell you, we'll give you a straight no BS answer as to whether it's worth, or someone in my team will, as to whether it's worth you pursuing development on that site. So hopefully that is helpful, folks. That is all from me. Just a final one that, until we fix trust in planning, we're going to keep wasting time fighting each other instead of focusing on the environment. So let us know what your experience is. Is it collaboration or is it combat? See you on the next one.